Hello, Papua New Guinea, and welcome to this special broadcast by TV1. I'm Cedric Pajole. Over the last 2 weeks, a nationwide house cry has been taking place to honor a founding father and the first Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, who peacefully passed away on February 26th. Today, TV1 will bring to you live images of the lie-in state of the casket in the National Parliament ceremony at the National Parliament in Waigani in the National Capital District. Joining me in the studio is a veteran journalist, writer and commentator, Mr. Frank Senge Kolma. Mr. Kolma, thank you very much for joining us today and to witness a historic occasion in this country.
You're welcome, Cedric.
Mr. Kolma, just whilst the official program is set to begin, could you just tell us briefly about your experience as a journalist, a long-serving journalist, and covering politics and also the political career of the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare?
Thank you, Cedric. It is a very, very sad day and a sad occasion. We can't bid each other as we normally do, good morning. It's a sad morning, and it has been a sad many mornings since February 26, when this great man, Sir Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, passed away at the Pacific International Hospital. There are many stories told about Sir Michael, personal experiences, exchanges, political, personal, private, official. This great man who lies in state today has brought change in this country, and he has touched many in this country and in the Pacific and throughout the world. He is indeed a man that we cannot find words enough to describe. Papua New Guinea, today independent for 46 years, is shut down. It is shut down in honor of this man, this one person, this very humble person, this very God-fearing person, this very respected person. I've met him in my job very, very many times. He had the occasion one time to teach me a lesson physically on the floor of Parliament. I cherish that moment. At the time it hurt fairly badly, but you know, I cherish the moment. It's not very many people who get touched by the hand that has signed this country into existence, and I'm privileged to have been touched by that hand. However much it stung at that time, I cherish the moment. As a professional journalist, I've had occasion to visit him. I've had personal interviews. I've talked with him long. I can't remember or recall many of those conversations that we had. A very humble person, very, very engaging person. If you got into a conversation, you felt this great man was with you. You know, he was not talking at you. He's just there for you. And that engagement, that engaging attitude of his, I suppose, brought this nation of divided tribes together. And Cedric, I tell you, he moved so many people by his compassion. He moved so many people by his willpower and this very personal ability to engage with you, to be with you. Too many great people, you talk to them and you know they're not here with you. It's just the physical thing there. But with him, he looked at you and, you know, he looked right into you and he was very engaging.
Yes, and There are a lot of similar messages and outpouring messages over the loss of this great man. Whilst we will have images of the official program come up on screen in a short while, but then the official program of the Lion State ceremony at the National Parliament House, as of 8 o'clock this morning, we had a guard of honor by the 1st Royal Pacific Island Regiment, and the arrival of dignitaries at Parliament House. In about 10 minutes' time, we should have the hearse arrive at the National Parliament House for the proceedings to begin. So the hearse will leave the funeral home, Port Moresby, and will travel through Erima, Geauto Drive, all the way up to past Unagi Oval. It will drive through Kennedy Road, and then up to the Waigani Drive, heading towards the Independence Boulevard, and then directly down to Parliament House. And the hearse should be arriving in a few minutes' time. We should have the images up shortly. But Mr. Colmer, again, it has been a very historic event to see a house cry of this magnitude around the country, all 22 provinces, each having different hamlets, villages, communities, all having a house cry to honor the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, which is something we might never see again, probably in a long while or never.
It certainly is not going to be repeated, as we cannot see Michael Thomas Somare again. Throughout the CPIC, every village has been beating Garamut. It's a very sad occasion, to have a river or a province filled with this mournful Garamut sound, throughout the CPIC. The CPIC has been in mourning since February 26. Every hamlet, every house that has a Garamut has been beating it in honor of this man, that the West CPIC people, East CPIC people, have returned to Parliament for so many years, since 1968 to 2017, unbroken in the Commonwealth, on record as the longest serving member of Parliament who's never had his tenure broken. So yes, it has been a very sad occasion for our country, from Wutung in West CPIC all the way down to East Cape, to the beautiful islands of Good Enough and Trobriand Islands and all the atolls of that beautiful province, and throughout the Shortland Highlands, Bougainville, Buka, New Ireland, Manus, East and West New Britain, everywhere, from Leh all the way past the beautiful Markham Valley, up the Kassam Pass, through Kainantu, through Goroka, through the beautiful Wagi Valley, to Mount Hagen, to Enga, across to Kandep, into Komomagarima, to Tari Pori, Lake Kutubu and Lake Kopiago. The country has been mourning. It's a very sad day. So moving. We can't find the words enough to describe the thoughts and words and actions of this man. And so, Cedric, I thank you for this occasion to be able to share with our people some of the experiences, some of the words, some of the thoughts of this great man, Sir Michael Thomas Somare. He, as we all know, was born in April 1936. At the time, the world was just coming out of the Great Depression. It was a country and a world that was torn. Hitler, angry at the outcome of World War I, was on the march with his Nazi party to begin World War II. And Somare was born in that period. He was touched by the war. He was taught Japanese in Karao, in his native village. And he came through all this period. He was there in 1947 when the World Bank and the IMF were built. He suffered personally the discriminations of the colonial times as a teacher and a broadcaster. And he entered politics at the ripe age of 38 in 1968. By then he was already politically involved through the Bully Beef Club in 1967. He had nationalist tendencies and he wanted to see this country independent. He could see throughout Africa, the Caribbean, the Pacific, throughout Asia, colonial countries under the colonial regime were gaining independence. He admired the politics of the Tanzania's Julius Nyerere at that time. And he wanted to see this country independent. He felt it with a deep feeling. And he entered politics in 1968. In 1969, he was there when they formed the first Constitutional Planning Commission. In 1972, he was chief minister. In June, he introduced the bill, the motion, to establish the Constitutional Planning Committee. And in 1974, the Constitutional Planning Committee completed its work and handed the draft constitution to him, Sir Michael Thomas Somare. And in August 1975, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution and dissolved itself as the House of Assembly to emerge as the National Parliament of Papua New Guinea after September 16, 1975.
Mr. Colma, just on touching on that, and obviously during this time you had a lot of great statesmen around Sir Michael Thomas Somare. What was the difference? What do you, in your opinion, did you see was the difference amongst all those leaders at that time and the push for independence? And obviously the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare was at the forefront of that and leading that.
Okay, I wouldn't say there was a difference. I see more similarity.
Yeah. Sorry, sir, I'll just cut off.
Okay.
Obviously, we have the images. I'll let you finish in a while. We'll just have the images there showing up from Parliament House, looking out to the Independence Boulevard as we await the hearse to arrive. As you can see, students lined up along the banks of the Independence Boulevard. Guests standing within the National Parliament premises. As we await confirmation that the hearse is arriving anytime now, according to the program that should be happening right now.
The whole of the streets of Port Moresby would be awash with people. If there are 400,000 people in Port Moresby, 400,000 would have turned up, but for COVID-19 restrictions, we see just a few out there. It must be remembered that
yes,
this is not out of disrespect or out of fear of anything. This has been.
And as we can see, the Governor General of Papua New Guinea, Grand Chief Sir Bob Dadai, has just arrived at Parliament House and is have a guard of honor. He's standing in front and the Royal PNG Constabulary Band.
Judges of the National and Supreme Court, accompanied by the Chief Justice, have already arrived and are on the premises.
A significant occasion and a big turnout of very important people to attend this ceremony as the Governor General makes his way up into the chamber of the National Parliament.
In the chamber, the public gallery will be virtually empty. The Speaker's gallery will be occupied by the family, Lady Veronica and the children and grandchildren, and by the heads of missions in this country and UN agencies, but nobody else. The chamber will be occupied by 111 members of parliament.
And as we have images coming from inside, members of parliament making their way in.
The gallery, as I said, you can note that it is virtually empty. There's something special about Parliament. There was a Works Department engineer called Seth Hogan. He died about 2 years back in his native Queensland. And he designed the Parliament. And this Parliament is very unique. It's been declared by the Chinese Institute of Architects as a world unique and iconic architecture. And this happened under his watch in 1974, under the watch of Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare. It was his government that approved it, and it was built. And in August 1984, Parliament was opened again under Sir Michael's watch. So this great, iconic, world-renowned, iconic building has been brought into existence by the man whose heirs shall be arriving here for one final time before it departs for its native Sepik. And he just didn't build a very beautiful building. He created the institutions that were to be housed in this building. He created the legislature. He created the committees of parliament and the parliamentary service. So we are witnessing here the passing of a man who built and gave to us, virtually everything. And we honor him. We pay him great respect. And the people of Papua New Guinea, normally, and it is common sometimes, to be disruptive in our grief, to be violent in our grief. People right around the country have shown the greatest restraint, and out of respect for this founding father of ours. Yes. And we got to, congratulate our people for the manner in which they've shown respect for Grand Chief Sir Michael.
Yes, and whilst we await the arrival of the hearse. The program will be as follows. The hearse will be received by the guard for the general salute, the chief party to carry the casket of the late Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare, into the Grand Hall of the National Parliament. Following that, bells to be rung and the members to assemble in the chamber. The Speaker will then take the chair and invite His Eminence John Rebart, Cardinal, Archbishop of Port Moresby, to say prayers, and the Speaker to seek the concurrence of Parliament and to admit the Chief Justice of Papua New Guinea, Sir Gibuma Gibbs Salika, His Excellency, the Governor-General Grand Chief, Sir Bob Dadai, and then the pallbearers carrying the casket of the late Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare, into the chamber. So that's the official program that will follow. And also, I said, obviously, Papua New Guinea losing two leaders within the space of, two very prominent leaders within the space of 4 months.
Yes.
Obviously, we had the late Sir Mekere Marauta and now the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. Very great leaders, and surely they will be missed. Just going back to your experiences, some of just going back to earlier, we're talking about the drive for independence and Sir Michael Thomas Somare standing out amongst a host of great leaders during their era.
Yes, you see, one of the things that amazes me, never ceases to amaze me, is that we see in this period, 1964 to 74, a period of 10 years, the emergence of a class of leaders uneducated by comparison to today's standards, uneducated, Form 4, grade or Form 6. You know, some of them didn't even see the inside of a classroom. And yet you see these collectors who were fiery, who were nationalists, who wanted to get away from this abusive discrimination, separation era of colonialism. And this fire burned in every heart, but it was stoked to flame and kept aflame by men like Sir Michael, who spoke to everyone, over 1,000 or more people, who spoke to people who today speak 800 different languages. And it is this charisma that he had, this ability to bring all these people together. That was the glue that held the nation together. Already in 1967, you saw movements by I think it was called the Harleys, of Bougainville for secession. You saw the emergence of Papua Besena, who wanted Papua for Papua. My lot up in the highlands, headed by, say, Tay Abel, said, well, Lipla Nambis, Ibla Kisim. Mipla Stabantam Australia legal time past them. Mipla was looking can development a school now or something else, Mipla Kisim, so Mipla blow Mipla yet. So there was this different tensions there, and it was Somare's ability to talk to the Highlanders and to the Papuans, to the Bougainvilleans, and this, he wasn't commanding them. He gave so much, of his time, and he conceded a lot of things. In August, when they adopted the Constitution, for instance, they dropped the entire section on provincial governments. Whereupon in October 1976, Father Den, Momis said, I created this constitution as the deputy chair of the CPC, Suppose people like all same, bone will buy, bro me play it. So they were marching off, and then Somare gave in to this. He said, okay, I'll reinsert the entire section on provincial governments, and you be heading it. So he gave in 1977, he gave Momis Minister for Decentralization. And so he gave a lot, he conceded a lot, but it was this ability to concede, to talk, that brought us together.
And really, that was probably one of his really great assets and skills that he had, was to be able to unite different cultures, different mentalities, different ways of doing things into one country. And over the past week, we also had the official program in the NCD where the 22 provinces turned up to farewell, to honor the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare, and a lot of great leaders leading their provinces to the ceremonies to honor the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare. As we have the images up again, and within and as you can see, images coming from National Parliament House overlooking the Independence Boulevard. And there's quite a number of people that have gathered now. You can see school children in their uniforms, and also members of the general public joining in as well. The hearse has left the funeral home and has begun its journey to Parliament House. Also, we'd like to welcome to the studio a seasoned diplomat, former head of mission, Mr. Peter Yafiari. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll have those images coming up soon. So just briefly tell us a bit about their history going back and rubbing shoulders with the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare.
Thank you. And also it's good to see Frank. And for the watching audience and Papua New Guinea, I presume, I want to say that my only real encounter with the Grand Chief was in 1988 when he became first time as foreign minister, and then in 1991 was really where I worked closely on his campaign on the 46th session of the UNGA presidency. At that time, I was a junior diplomat in New York, and we had started a 3-month campaign. My boss was the late Ambassador Peter Donigi, who I worked closely with on that particular assignment. During which time we went from New York to Abuja, Nigeria, where we attended the 54th session of the Foreign Ministers and the 27th session of the Leaders Summit, really to lobby up against us, because the Asia group, as they call it, because of the 5 distributions of the different regions, the Asia group, which starts from the Middle East all the way down to Tonga. We were able to at least attend the African, because they were a large lobby, but we were up against, it was a 4-way race in the first instance, where we had Saudi Arabia, which was a founding member of the UN in 1945, and then we also had Yemen, and we had Cyprus, and then Papua New Guinea.
And my apologies, sir. I'll just have to look at the images on screen there.
Sure.
I believe the hearse has arrived at Parliament House and go through the formalities of taking the
very significant
hearse up to the foyer,
Parliament House,
which will then be taken into Parliament.
The hearse will be, Cedric, hearse will be received by PNG Defence Force Pref Commander Colonel Larry Oppa, and the pallbearers will be commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Fred Aile and bearers Party Commander Steve Narimonda of Mari Barracks. The Combined Forces Guard of Honor, as you see there, is combined of CIS, the military, the PNG Defence Force, and the police force, of course. And that Guard of Honor is commanded by Major Chris Nayaba of Force Support Battalion. And escort party commander is Lieutenant Rema of the PNG Defence Force Ceremonial Company. So we see them now, slow marching.
The party which was established
ahead of
in 2014.
The vehicle bearing Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. This is sad because he and his parliament in a hearse for the final physical time, building, as I said, that he oversaw the building of, building which houses institutions that he created under the Constitution. And so here he is, the final time, attending Parliament. He so wished that he be buried in Kriya Heights in Wewak, and the government has acceded to that. Normally, prime ministers are now buried at Independence Hill, but he'd been preparing and actually built his own coffin and created space for himself and one for his dear wife, Lady Veronica, in Korea Heights. And we are told that he said, I would wish, my last wish is to be buried at home, at Korea Heights. So we will see him attend Parliament now, and all the members of Parliament will pay him their respects. A number of them will speak, and then he will be borne home.
And Mr. Fiari, obviously it's, the outpouring around the nation has been significant. Just your opinion on that.
I think right throughout the week, the accolades and the words of condolences that have been given, I was humbly privileged to also speak on behalf of those who were public servants who had worked closely with him during the Gulf and Central session. And one of the things we note is the stature of the man. The person has actually been given so much. He's revered throughout the Pacific, and reflecting on what Frank has just described. The fact that he's going to be buried in Korea Heights is in itself significant, because if you go to Korea Heights, where it is, it looks over towards, I mean, it's almost like his lordship over Wewak is there. And it's significant for him. I knew in my heart of hearts that he would not necessarily agree to being buried under the flag at Independence Hills, because of the way in which he had been treated towards the twilight of his years. And we all who were close to him felt the pain that the family felt. But nonetheless, I think the honor that the government of Honorable Prime Minister Marape and the people of Papua New Guinea itself turning out in numbers and literally, showing the kind of grief that one would do for a passing loved one. And I think he's a unique person that was blessed. It was set apart by God. There's no question about it, to lead this country into what he brought us through, against all odds. There were challenges against him. The external territory minister at that time didn't feel that we were ready. But his party, Pangu, and the stalwarts felt that they were ready. Better now than later. And I think he chose wisely, given his stature as a person of both imbued with culture, coming from the Murik Lakes, endowed with the chieftainship of being Sana, the peacemaker. And later on I will reflect on some of the things that I did when I was almost 9 years in Suva, and he would visit. I arrived before the coup, lived through the coup, and left just before the elections. And the way in which he was guiding and talking to me about certain things that I should do and observe in relation to dealing with the Fijian military government that was in power. But yes, this is a real solemn occasion, and I think Papua New Guinea, he deserves this kind of honor as our founding father and as our founding prime minister.
In that respect, we must thank the Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape. He's the chief mourner. He's been at the house cry, receiving all the provincial groups. We have to be thankful to the governor of the national capital, who also has been is co-hosting the house cry in Port Moresby. And this is a national house cry.
Yes.
And so this is now, all this is staged as a state funeral. It does not become private yet.
The representative.
The procession here by all the forces just indicates that it is a full military honor being given, and I suspect there will be a gun salute.
Get the late in the chamber.
Seeing the numbers, it would be 19 because he was former head of government, not former head of state, where it'll be a 21 gun salute. So as we see it, I mean, after the pallbearers carry him through into the chambers, and when he's laid in state, and you will see the way in which Parliament has to then stand and then show their respects. And I think the bell has already been rung, so the members should all be seated.
Members are already in the Parliament. As we watch the hearse, being taken down, let me say a word here for the family, Lady Veronica and the children. They've been real stoic. They've said St. Michael publicly for so many years. We've got to think about them. And today, in their very, very private moment, at one of the saddest times in their lives, they also have to say this thing publicly. That it is not, they can't grieve in private, and you got to give the Somare family, Lady Veronica, a lot of credit and kudos, and our hearts go out to them. They have borne this very stoically. They have borne it very, very beautifully in his public years as Prime Minister, as member for East City, and now in his death, they also have had to say their sorrow publicly. So we thank Lady Veronica and the children for this.
Yes. And I think, I can add to that, and I've seen the way in which they both fawn upon their children, and especially the grandchildren. And I've had occasions where we've traveled together, and the gifts that the lady would buy, and the great forbearance of Grand Chief is, Mama bli walking again, you saw it in his little camera. Or tumuna ya, emol tumuna blongam. You miss Baba, you walking blong tumuna. And that's the great heart he had, and he embraced all of us, all of us. I mean, when he called you son, he meant it. I was just listening to Mr. Maketu, Tas Maketu, the former Defense Secretary, on radio in NBC. He was being, he's also making a commentary, and the way in which he was never called Mr. Maketu or Tas, he was called Aitape. And I think that's the way in which he wanted to embrace individuals that he felt a liking for, or like he embraced everybody. He embraced you too, Frank, in spite of a few fly in the ointment issues, but that's by the by. I think that was the fact that sometimes, when you on the spur of the moment, things do happen, and I've seen him even chastise his own. And we're privileged because we watch him chastise his own ministers and even his own staff. And one thing I never forget is every time he sees some sloppiness, he sees some sort of display of ignorance, he would say, KBS, And we knew exactly what it means. Kanaka Bibla something. So that's a phrase he coined. And sometimes I just look at him and I just say to myself, sir, I'm just trying to avoid being called that. And I think Leonard went into that kind of thing when he chased Leonard out of the office because Leonard had a mouthful of Leonard Loma, his former chief of staff, mouthful of betel nut. And they said, you get out. You want to do it, go back to your house and do it, or to the Trobriand Islands. So when he went out, Chief asked him, he asked Seki, hey, I went there, he chose me. And they laughed at him and said, he doesn't like betel nut chewing in the office. Go to the toilet, clean your mouth, and then go back in. So when he walked back in, the Grand Chief said, that's what I want. Thank you. Okay, sit down. Just an amazing man. I mean, you've had your moments with him. He's somebody is so likable. You can't sort of refuse to say anything other than thank you, sir, or 3 bags full, sir, kind of stuff.
One week after our little exchange in Parliament, he and Lady Veronica and Ted Diro, they met and said, sorry, sorry, uncle.
Yeah.
Film good lot is type, so sorry straight. And this is this man, his ability to make peace instantly and genuine peace, It just, made you forget. And I think this great attitude of forgiveness, forget, making peace, that was one more of the things that made him great.
We just arrived, so we knew what happened. Because I was trying to get the... Sorry.
Yeah. That's fine. I'll just go to the live
Yes,
pictures
okay,
of the proceedings of what's taking place. You see the casket being taken in by the pallbearers. left you can see the casket of the late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, carried on by the pallbearers into Parliament, into the chamber. And we have the immediate family of the late Grand Chief standing beside, observing. Betha, I believe that's Arthur.
This is the Grand Hall. From here, from the Grand Hall, the coffin will then be brought into the Chamber of Parliament. While we are watching those images, if we may, sometimes you see Sir Michael's name and you see a whole lot of abbreviations behind it. You know, what are these? You know, they actually are acolytes or High Commissioner Yudnop.
Yes,
what are they?
Well, basically the GCL is the Grand Chief of the Order of Logohu, which is Papua New Guinean. And
He
then
created that
Yeah.
order.
He created the order. I must say I did the initial, footwork when I was in the Prime Minister's department.
Very good.
And then we handed it over to Sir Frederick Reiher, who insisted that he should run it because he's the Knight of the Realm. And then he was also conferred, well, he was conferred 4 times by the Queen. And that is the GCMG, which is the Grand Cross of the Order of St. Michael and St. George.
Okay.
And then the Order of the Companion of Orders, which is also conferred by the Queen, CH. And then Her Majesty's Most Honourable Privy Council, which is the PC. And Knight of Justice and Grace of the Most Venerable Order of St. John of Jerusalem. And those are orders conferred upon or invested with by the Queen. And then you also have the recognition of his strong faith in Catholicism as a Catholic. The Pope ordained him with the Knight of St. Gregory the Great. It's an old knighthood that the Pope gives to those that they consider to be closely associated with the Catholic Church and the spreading of the Catholic faith. So he was one of those. He was also conferred with the Companion of the Order of Fiji, and I was privileged to be there when he appointed me to go down. I went in June of 2005, and then the award was given at the Auckland House in Fiji, the CF that appears, and in the later award is the SSI, which is the Solomon Islands, Star of Solomon Islands. That's also given by that country, and that's the highest order, as is the CF in Fiji. So it's the way in which quite a number of people in the Pacific revered him and respected him. Not because of Taratumara, but because, in my view, he was Sana. And that's an important aspect of how he was able to be the go-between in times when there were difficulties, especially during Leaders Summit meetings in the Pacific Island Forum. And I've witnessed how he's pulled this off. To some extent, all our leaders have this mana, as they call it in Polynesian, that ambiance that people are attracted to. Because when Papua New Guinea speaks, said, "You're the big brother, we know." And he was one of the leading figure in that regard. And that's why those countries saw that they would like to honor him with their highest orders. And that's something that we are proud of as Papua New Guineans because of the person that he is.
Also, as we watch images of the Grand Chief, Sir Michael Lang, there in the Grand Hall, in 1976, Sir Michael received an honorary doctorate of humanities from the University of the Philippines. He received an honorary doctorate of law from the Australian National University. He was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Technology in 1982, and he received an honorary doctorate of law from the University of Papua New Guinea. And so countries as well as institutions, great halls of learning recognize the contributions that was made by the Grand Chief, and they were willing to award him the highest honor.
Well, as we can see, he's now lying outside in the gallery, the Grand Hall, soon after which, as the program indicates, the bell will be rung, and then the Cardinal John Ribart will be brought into invited by the Speaker to enter into the chambers, and then following which will then be brought into the chambers for viewing. So the admission. And I presume the Chief Justice has already arrived within the chambers, so...
He all the members of the judges of the Supreme and National Court.
Yes, the full bench.
Are in attendance. It is a great day, a sad day of national mourning. It's almost it is recognized by nature. Over the last 7 days or so, it has been raining, but this morning dawned overcast in Port Moresby, and then the sun made its appearance at about 7:38, and now it is just a dull day, a sad day, and even nature reflects our mood, our sadness on this day of national mourning.
Well, to all viewers, it will be difficult identifying which members these are because of the mask.
Yes,
in other parliaments, they have name tags in front of each of the desks so that you know and you can identify. But I guess nobody anticipated COVID-19, so hence the Speaker is yet to resume his chair. I had noticed that as the casket was being brought up, he was there to receive it at the entrance near the pool, entrance to the gallery. Grateful.
a solemn occasion. As we all know, Sir Michael was born in Rabaul, where his father was working, Ludwig was working at the time, on April 9th, 1936. And then he went home to Karau village in the Murik Lakes, that is in East Sepik province. He is a traditional chief. They call him Sana, and I think that refers to a man's ability to make peace, to create peace, be a bearer of peace. He attended school during the World War 2 years, from 1942 to 1944. And in 1946 went to Boram Primary School. He then attended Dragahafen Education Center in Finsafen. That is in Finsafen, isn't it, Herr Commissioner? Dragahafen. And then Sogeri High School, where he graduated with a Victorian Learning Certificate in 1957. He taught in various primary and secondary schools, including at Hutu High School in New Ireland Province and Tuspap High School in Medang. I attended the school next door, Catholic High School, so I know Tuspap quite well. In 1962, Sir Michael returned to Sogeri High School for further training and resumed teaching in 1963. In February of that year, 1963, the UN sent a delegation headed by an Englishman called Hugh Foot.
62.
62 was it? And they prepared a report that basically said we should prepare this nation for self-governing status. That was in 1962. In June 1964, the first elections were held, and later the first House of Assembly met.
Yep.
And it was only 4 years later, in 1968, that Sir Michael, at the age of 38, he became member for East Sepik, was elected. So, you know, it has all happened in his lifetime, in all our lifetimes, in one lifetime. And that's a tremendous achievement. Sometimes we look at each other and we knock each other and we condemn each other. We should take the far grander view from a higher level, such as Sir Michael did. And if there are pebbles in the road and the like, from that view, you might not see too much. You might see a far grander, picture, such as he did.
Well, you know, I mean, we're still awaiting the speaker to resume his seat, because then the proceedings will begin.
That's it.
But to add on to what you have said, the visit by Sir Hugh Foot in 1962 was quite significant in that followed with resolutions that were brought up at the UN General Assembly, one of which was Resolution 1514, which talked about declaring of non-self-governing states, and then Resolution 1541. That was in 65 and 66. The resolution that was effected for us was a complaint lodged by those countries who saw that PNG was not, Australia was, as an administration, was not even moving towards allowing for it. So that was Resolution 2117 of 1965, and then 227 was the deciding one in 1966, which actually forced the hand of Australia. But interesting enough, in the annals of the history of the Foreign Affairs Department of Australia, it's recorded, and I just happen to have a volume of it, of 1966 to 1969, Australia and Papua New Guinea. And in it, there is recorded that the External Territories Minister, Mr. Barnes, was saying that we're not going to be subject to the dictates of the UN. We will decide how these proceedings will take place. So against it all, you've got Sir Michael and the Pangu stalwarts championing the cause of. He saw that this was the opportunity to move in, because most countries in Africa were now becoming, and that resolution within the Trusteeship Council was really done to bring about that realization of the self-determination of non-self-governing territories and non-self-governing colonies. But Australia abstained on both those resolutions. And it was interesting because the lobby of the white colonials, especially in the highlands,
The planters.
the Planters Association, was the lobby against PNG actually, Australia actually moving towards that process. But interesting enough, Kim Bisley Senior, who was, and the Labour Party had been involved from day one.
Yes.
But Kim Bisley Senior, who is the father of Kim Bisley, as we know, was the former defence minister under the Labour government of Paul Keating. And Kim Bisley Senior was the one who said, no, we have to properly train these people. So there were quite a lot of people within the Labour Party and also observers. The biggest lobby was because the money is being made that was going into Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra. Oh, Canberra was not realised at that time anyway. Formerly, well, no, sorry, of course. But the point being that this is what Sir Michael and his colleagues, and they had support from Tony Vutis, who was the member for Haindi. And Tony Vutis now, I understand, lives in Beijing. His wife was ambassador, but he's a teaching fellow. But he was a Pangu person. Percy Chatterton, the Right Reverend, Sir Barry Holloway, who now lies at Launceston in Tasmania. But they were the ones who decided, no, we have to support this. And they didn't stop at that, because Sir Albert Mauri Kiki was sent down to talk about land rights. And he joined this early movement of the Mabo land movement that the Aboriginals were involved in. But those are some of the background upon which you were fighting against. Even United Party, and also PPP was formed in about 1972, and they, Sir Julius said, we will only join the movement for independence if you give us ministries. So that was worked out. And I think the coalition that started soon after the 72 election is something that laid the foundation for what we know us now as the modern state of Papua New Guinea, because of this man, this great visionary who was called out of the Karau Murik Lakes just to lead our country into what we are enjoying now. Things have gone up, down, but the point is, okay, the laying of the mace means that the Speaker will now come into the chambers.
Honourable members, His Eminence Cardinal John Ribat will say prayers this morning.
Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering the elected leaders of our nation, Papua New Guinea. Bless them in their work of leadership, that they will continue to accept this great responsibility with respect and love for the people who have great trust in them and have elected them as their representative in this parliament. Unite them with love for their people, so that in all they do will be a reflection of their love and respect for them. Today is a special Parliament meeting. It is with great respect and honor for the Founding Father and the first Prime Minister of our nation, Papua New Guinea, who has passed on the 26th February 2021, exactly 14 days ago. Late Sir Michael Thomas Somare was a true believer, a man of integrity, and Sir Michael is and he will always be a man of history. He was a man of faith, which means grateful reverence towards the source of our being, of what we have received, our God, our country, our locality, and the people of and our ancestors and family. He had a great vision to unite the many cultures and languages to become one country. In the course of his life journey, he encountered many obstacles, but remained resolute. One of his drive, he always said that if we are confronted with problems, there is no other way. We had to continually work for the building of peace and unity and a better future for all of us. Lord, be with us and the whole nation in these days of mourning. Bless Papua New Guinea. Let us pray for late Sir Michael, that the Lord will reward him for all that he has done for our nation and our country. Let us pray for the repose of his soul, and may the Lord bless this Parliament on this special day of meeting. Amen.
Amen. Honourable members, I wish to inform Parliament that His Excellency the Governor-General, Grand Chief Sir Bob Dadai, and His Honour the Chief Justice Sir Gibuma Gibbs Salika are in the presence of the Parliament, and B, pallbearers carrying the casket containing the body of Grand Chief Right Honourable Sir Michael Thomas Somare will be admitted into the chamber. With the concurrence of all honourable members, I invite His Excellency the Governor-General and His Honour the Chief Justice to be seated on the floor of the Parliament. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this Parliament expresses its deepest regret at the death of the first Prime Minister of the independent state of Papua New Guinea, the late great Grand Chief Right Honorable Sir Michael Thomas Somare, GCL, GCMG, CH, CF, SSI, KSG, PC on 26 February 2021 and places on record its recognition of his long meritorious and devoted service to the people of Papua New Guinea and extend its profound sympathy to his family in their bereavement. Mr. Speaker, it is with these regards that we're having this special session of Parliament.
Honorable Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion and endorse.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Will those in favor say aye?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today on this very important and special occasion of the state funeral of our founding father, the son of the Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare. We are meeting here today to pay our last respects to a truly unique person in our beautiful country. There can never be and will never be another Michael Thomas Somare. The late Right Honorable Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare was specially chosen by God to bring this nation to independence and its nationhood. He was a clear leader. He had patience, compassion, charisma, vision, and wisdom. He had the qualifications of a teacher and a communicator. He consulted with others and gained consensus. He held his wife and children close to his heart. He was God-fearing. These attributes were the glue that has brought together and held this nation together so far. From the mountains to the river valleys and the islands and the atolls of Papua New Guinea, we have been blessed and touched by the life of this one man, very special man, the son of Papua New Guinea. Whether he was blissfully unaware as a child born in the chaotic aftermath of the Great Depression in 1936, whether he, as an innocent child, learned the Japanese language during the Great War, the World War II, whether looking for employment as a teacher and broadcaster, while bearing the racial injustices of the colonial era in the late 1950s and the 1960s. Whether as member of the Bully Beef Club, plotting our nationhood in 1967, or blazing the path himself as the chairman of the Constitutional Planning Committee between June 1972 and August 1974, or whether as chief minister, and then the first prime minister, steering the multilingual ship of statehood to nationhood, and repeating the honor no less than 4 times, more than half of his living years in a political career spanning 49 years uninterrupted. It has happened in just 84 years in his lifetime. It has happened in all our lifetimes. In one lifetime, our Grand Chief wanted a united, prosperous, God-fearing, and free nation. He wanted an educated population to contribute meaningfully to the development of our country. He wanted fair and equitable distribution of the harvest of our natural resources. He wanted things to be done in Papua New Guinean way and Melanesian way. He did not just want it, he did it and lived it. This government and future governments would do well to bear this in mind when they appropriate budgets to ensure that there is equal share for everyone of the 89 districts, 22 provinces, regardless of which side of the house we sit, whether in government or in the opposition. This is the legacy we must continue. That is the legacy of the Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare, the founding father of our nation. We can never take away or discredit an amazing feat like that from the Grand Chief, who we have come to honor today, to pay tribute and to bid farewell. In paying tribute, I am compelled to add a few words in explanation to defend myself against certain accusations against me in the last few years, but more so in the last few days since the passing of Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. I am accused of mistreating the Grand Chief during the political impasse in 2011. I am accused of storming into the courtroom of the then Chief Justice Sir Solomon Injia at the time. Some made speeches during the house cry, and it's only proper that I respond as a matter of unity in this very special occasion. I accept the criticisms that have arisen, but I will not have them taint the memory of my relationship with my father, the Grand Chief, or with his family, the people of East and West Sepik, and the people of our beautiful country. My conscience was and is clear. We all seem to suffer short memories or prefer to be selective in what we choose to remember. It is a dangerous thing to be selective. In 2011, the political atmosphere was different and a call for change was made. At that time, it was loud and clear that the kitchen cabinet was running the government, was running the country, without the knowledge of the Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare. The majority of the members of parliament at that time called for change and wanted change. I was only an instrument of change at that time as I took lead and stood out. Let us not all start a blame game. This is the time of our nation's mourning. Some accused me of storming into the Chief Justice chamber, to the courtroom of the Chief Justice. I want my accusers to view the videos of the sitting in Parliament, which I described the Grand Chief as the stranger in Parliament. Somebody else introduced the description. I echoed the description and I own up to it, to my deep regret. And I am sorry for what I said to our founding father and the Grand Chief. I say sorry to Sana, Arthur, Junior Michael, Beta, Dalcia, and Lady Veronica, to the people of East and West Sepik, and to the people of our beautiful country. That said, after the induction of the 8th Parliament in 2012, I rose on this floor of Parliament during my maiden speech as leader of the opposition then, and apologized to the Grand Chiefs and Michael Thomas Somare, Lady Veronica, the family, to the people of East and West Sepik, and to wider Papua New Guinea. I also apologize for my behavior towards the then Chief Justice Salomo Injia, both in Parliament and personally. If people in this country still have any grudges against me, I take this opportunity of this very special occasion of the passing of our Sana, the peacemaker, to forgive them. And I beg them for their forgiveness. I would also like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize and say sorry to the Right Honorable Sir Julius Chen, Lady Stella, his children, and family, and the people of New Ireland and Papua New Guinea for my part in the Sandline crisis, which has now brought lasting peace to our people of Bougainville, and which at that time interrupted Sir Julius Chen's political career. I apologized to Sir Julius Chen. I also extend my sincere apologies and say sorry to the former Chief Justice, Sir Salomo Injia, his wife and children, the people of Sauk Valley, the people of Wapanamanda, the people of Enga Province, the judiciary, and Papua New Guinea for storming into the Chief Justice courtroom during the impasse. I am sorry. I know I have already apologized and said sorry to Sir Julius Chen and Sir Salomo Injia, personally and publicly before, but I'm doing it again today for peace and unity to prevail in our country in this very special occasion. I ask that you all forgive me. The late Right Honorable Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, I have made my peace with him. He forgave me and accepted me as his son. That was one of the greatest marks of this great man and the father of our nation. He fought these battles fiercely and gave as good as he got, together or alone, in government or in the opposition, lose or win. But always, in the end, he had the ability to embrace and to forgive. He is the great Sana of Papua New Guinea. That's what he taught us. He taught us to forgive in a country divided by tribal differences, with more than 1,200 tribes and 800 plus different languages. But he had the ability to manage because he had a trade of forgiveness. Forgiveness was the magic the Grand Chief used to unite our beautiful nation. Forgiveness is what we must carry forward as one of the greatest gifts from our founding father. He will be long remembered as the only prime minister in our country who has ever pardoned the citizens of our beautiful country. He pardoned the then member for Manus Open, late Now Rooney, in the late 1980s. He also pardoned Captain Belden Nomanama, Captain Bola Renagi, Captain Linus Osoba on their part in the Sandline crisis on the 15th of September, on the eve of our independence in 2005. I am one of the major beneficiaries of his decision, and I owe it to my civic wheeler, my son, my father. Forgiveness will be the virtue and memory I treasure about our Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare, my civic wheeler, my son, my father. I offer my sincere condolences of my family, my people of Vanimo Green River District, myself to Lady Veronica, my brothers Sana, Arthur and Michael Jr., and my sisters Beta, Talsia, and all the bubus and relatives of our great Sana, the people of East and West Sepik, to the people of our beautiful country, I offer my sincere condolences to late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. Farewell, my greatest teacher. Farewell, my son. Farewell, my civic wheeler. Farewell, my father. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I now call upon His Excellency the Governor General, Grand Chief Sir Bob Dedai, to make his speech.
Speaker of Parliament, Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Leader of the Opposition, Members of Cabinet, and Members of Parliament, former leaders who are sitting at the chamber, the judges of the Supreme and the National Court, the members of the Foreign Diplomatic Corps, members of the community, the immediate family members of our founding father and Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare, Lady Veronica and the children, people of East and West Sepik, people of Papua New Guinea who are listening throughout the nation. I stand here before you to pay tribute on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of the Commonwealth and the Queen of the independent state of Papua New Guinea. My Speaker, thank you for calling this special Parliament to give honor and respect to our founding father, Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, who lies in state for the final time. Our founding father was not an ordinary leader. At birth, he inherited chieftaincy title as both warrior and a peacemaker from his father. Our Grand Chief was a warrior of a different kind. His charismatic words were as powerful as sharp spear that penetrated the hearts and minds of people and those who were in colonial administration to transfer the power of self-government and independence, which was successfully achieved on September 16, 1975. In his own words, this is what he has to say about independence. While others are thinking in terms of decades, I am talking about few years. As a great peacemaker and sana, he succeeded self-determination peacefully. As PNG flag was about to be raised for the first time on that historical moment at Sir Hubert Murray Stadium, this is what our first Governor General, Sir John Guy, said in his first independent message. We are lowering the flag of Australia, not tearing it down. This short but meaningful statement reflected a very smooth transition of mandate for political rule without a revolution or bloodshed, a trend which is quite evident in many other colonies. The peaceful power is indeed, transfer of power is indeed a manifestation of extraordinary leadership of our Grand Chief as warrior and peacemaker, Sana. Our founding father and Prime Minister did not only unite a nation of 100 tribes and over 800 languages, but equally importantly, he positioned PNG's mark in the international front by doing a number of things. For example, he forged binding relationship with the rest of the world with the policy of friends to all and enemy to none. He adopted Westminster system of government to retain a strong bond with Commonwealth countries and made Queen as head of state, to whom I am now her vice-regal. He declared PNG as a Christian country through our constitution, and later by signing a covenant with the Council of Churches. Our founding father is truly an icon of democracy. He faithfully served his people and country and set record as the longest serving member of parliament in the Commonwealth. The founding father of our currency, Kina and Toya, perhaps only the surviving member of parliament since period independence, Chief Sir Julius Chen, is best qualified person to make the following remarks about his late colleague. Who would ever foreseen that the birth of a child on April 9, 1936 in Rabaul was beginning of a journey that would not only carry Sir Michael Somare through tumultuous and exciting life, but also lead to the birth of a nation, a diverse nation ever born in the history of the world. Our founding fathers' legacy will also cross borders to our neighbors and friendly nations, where his impeccable leadership and influence leaves lasting impressions. Here are some examples of what some of them have to say. Sir Michael Somare was the living symbol of the country's fierce spirit of self-determination. He was not only a founding father of a nation, but also a statesman of the Pacific. He leaves behind a legacy as architect of the regional unity of Pacific people. When our Grand Chief first contested CIPIC regional seat in 1968 at a tender age of 32, he did not make a lot of fanfare in his campaign speeches. He simply said, "Trust me." His voters responded favorably, and not just once, but in all national elections that followed, until he graciously called it quit in 1917 of old age. In doing so, he set a record as the longest serving member of Parliament in the Westminster system of government. When he was first mandated to House of Assembly in the colonial government of Papua and New Guinea, he was simply Honorable Mr. Michael Somare. Today, the nation will return him respectively to his homeland as founding father of the nation. The Right Honorable Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare, GCL, GCMG, CH, CF, SSI, KSG, PC. Not forgetting a number of honorary doctors he received here and abroad for his distinguished services. Our Grand Chief and founding father of the nation wisely chose his final resting place at Crea Heights in Wewak, so that the history does not become a memorable past, but rather it becomes a living future. The place where he called home and raised his lovely family and received mandate from his people to save whole of Papua New Guinea will now also become a museum, so that his story will become source of knowledge and inspiration for the generation that comes after us. The greater Papua New Guinea and the international community must also easily see and read about his great leadership of this great leader of our time. Therefore, I must take this opportunity to thank our Prime Minister and his government for declaring 26th February of each year as Remembrance Day for our founding father. I must also commend the government for the commitment made to erect a monument here at the vicinity of the Parliament to remember our Grand Chief. Secondly, I want to thank Governor and government and people of Morobe for the commitment that they have made to declare Najaf Airport to Sir Michael Somare International Airport when completed. It is a fitting reflection of what Grand Chief means to the people of Morobe. In his birth, he is a Tolai son. In blood, he is a Sipik son. In Papua New Guinea, he is a Grand Chief, the founding father. And if I may add, in Morobe, he is a Songang and Kasiga via his roots in education and establishment of politics, political party. Most importantly, we are so grateful and deeply indebted to Lady Veronica and the children. We want to thank you for sharing your husband and father's love with us, the 8 million people of Papua New Guinea. Mama Veronica, you want plus strong plus Mary. Your faithfulness, love and loyalty to your husband made it possible for your dear husband to serve this country faithfully with sheer determination to the end of his political career. And this is what Grand Chief has to say about his one and only dear spouse, Lady Veronica. And I quote, "She was a young woman who changed my life, that I could have the credibility at home and at place of work professionally," off quote. Fourthly, it would remiss me if I do not acknowledge great contributions made by other founding fathers towards achieving self-determination. There are too many to name individually, but I cannot simply ignore this one group and leaders behind it. Mataungan Association of East New Britain and the visionary leaders in the likes of Oscar Tamur and John Caputin. I want to say thank you for organizing that memorable protest march in Rabaul in 1970 to petition Australian Prime Minister who was paying a visit there, Prime Minister John Gorton, to grant independence to Papua New Guinea. To Australia, we say thank you to you and Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, who stood with Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare and Sir John Caputin. Finally, to our 8 million people out there, I cannot thank you enough for turning up in numbers, young and old, in four corners of our country, in Trupala Melanesian passing, to openly grieve and shed tears to demonstrate your love for our founding father and Grand Chief, Sir Michael Thomas Somare. Be it known that this is but the biggest house cry ever in Papua New Guinea's history. In closing, this is the message from our Grand Chief left with us, the young leaders today, if we want to emulate his footsteps. This is what he said, and I quote, "Accountability, humility, and patience sit at the center of any kind of success, of good. Thank you, Grand Chief. May you rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Mama Veronica and the children. Thank you, people of East and West Pacific. Thank you, people of Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Thomas. Taniku Badaherea. May God bless Somare family. May God bless people of East and West Pacific. May God bless people of Papua New Guinea. Our Grand Chief, rest in eternal peace.
I now call upon His Honor, the Chief Justice, Sir Gibuma, Gibbs Salika, to make a speech.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. The Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable James Marabe, the Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers of State, the Leader of the Opposition, members of the Opposition, and the members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to thank you for, and the other members of Parliament for granting His Excellency and myself leave to enter the sacred chambers of Parliament. Thank you, members of Parliament, for giving us that leave to enter your domain. There has been others who have gone before. I think 2 former prime ministers who have now gone before us, before the founding father of our nation. And this is one of those occasions where we all gathered here as leaders of this country to bid farewell to the founding father of our nation, the Right Honorable Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, with all the titles that he had been bestowed. We acknowledge them. This is a momentous occasion for Papua New Guinea because this is our founding father that we've come to mourn, and we've come together here. It is an important occasion for this country. But it is only fitting that our leadership farewell our founding father in this house that he built. Without any further ado, we, the people of Papua New Guinea, united in one culture and tradition, pay homage to the founding father of Papua New Guinea, the now late Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare. Today in death, Sir Michael unites us as a people and as a united country. Before independence was obtained, this country was fragmented into Papuans, into New Guineans, Highlanders, Simbus, Goilalas, the Taris, the Kiwais, the Gorabaris, the Mekeos, the Tolais, the Sipiks, the Rigos, and you name it. In fact, our forefathers were just coming out of our own little worlds, hidden in our bushes and in the mountains, to an open, wide world. Each of those fragmented groups had their own leaders and the form of leadership they lived. But out of those mountains and out of those valleys and out of those bushes, they came. In October, on the 1st of October 1960, the Pacific Islands Monthly magazine reported this article: Papua-New Guinea on the road to autonomy, 1960. The article read, "Natives are to be elected for the first time through a system of electoral conferences in each electorate. This method to be used only during a transitional period," end of quote. That was the beginning of a statement that was to come into reality not so long later. Here we are in Parliament, in the People's Parliament, where decisions are made, where policies are made, where laws are made. And we thank the foresight of our forefathers, who at the time made the calls for an independent nation. A lot has been said since the passing of our late leader and our late chief, and deservedly so. He was allocated a small matchbox government house on Silkwood Street, Ohola, opposite the now Papua New Guinea Power Headquarters. Those of you who bought Tuesday's national newspaper would have seen it this week, would have seen the photographs of his old house and the current owner of the house. I mentioned this last Wednesday evening at the house cry. I think Sir Michael at the time was at call, and he was also working in Parliament as well. Last Wednesday night, I said one thing that may have made Somare to fast-track the fight for independence, and that was that he was living in a matchbox house. Dwelling in a matchbox house in his own country. And to see him living in that country, and not just himself, but see others also living in such matchbox dwellings, I think he felt that, well, why should we be living this way in small matchbox houses while others are living in 3-4 bedroom houses, living on the hillsides? Because our late chief did go around to Boroko, Konidobu town, and looked on the hillsides and mountainsides in Port Moresby, only to see that no Papua New Guinea people were living in the High Covenant houses, and he was determined to free Papua New Guinea of domination, oppression, and suppression. He succeeded in doing that. Today, you see Papua New Guinea people living in High Covenant houses right throughout Port Moresby City and all over Papua New Guinea. Who do you give credit to that for? the man who lies in state right now. He fought for that. He fought for you and me to live in high covenant houses, to live on the mountainsides, on the mountain tops and the hillsides, so that we could live in freedom in those places. There were other factors like signs at Ella Beach, in the hotels, and at the Davara Hotel or Papua Hotel and other hotels in the earlier days, which read, "Black people not allowed in these hotels, in these taverns and restaurants." No native was human enough to enter those places. Even Ella Beach was not open to the natives. No one was man enough to go against those discriminatory and racist notices. My father was a laborer at the Koitaki rubber plantation, and he was not treated like a human being. He was not allowed into beer bars where alcohol was served, and he was not allowed to do anything that was only restricted to other races. That is the kind of domination, oppression, and suppression he faced. That is, my father faced, but he was too scared to do anything for fear of losing his life. This was burning in Somare's heart. To free you and me and free us, he did. He led the fight from the front, the Muriklek Sana, the Sukundimi. Somare chose participatory constitutional and parliamentary democracy for Papua New Guinea rather than a presidential style of democracy. He used the Pangu Party machinery to achieve all these things, and he had in his vision. At independence, Somare united all our not so much sophisticated and educated leaders to forge this nation we call today as Papua New Guinea. 1,000 tribes and nations all united to create a nation called Papua New Guinea. Our founding fathers, of which Sir Michael Somare was the principal architect, declared a set of fundamental principles upon which PNG would stand on. They were, all power belongs to the people. We must have respect for the dignity of an individual and community interdependence to be the basic principles of our society. You and I were to guard with our lives our PNG national identity, integrity, and respect. We were to reject violence and seek consensus to solve our disputes. We were to work hard with total honesty to create our national wealth, which was to be equally shared and shared by all. Then those are set out in the national goals and directive principles in our Constitution. And those are integral human development, equality and participation, national sovereignty and self-reliance, natural resources and environment, PNG ways to achieve development using PNG forms of social, political, and economic organizations. And at independence, we acquired fundamental rights and freedoms, individually and collectively, regardless of race, tribe, place of origin, color, sex, and creed. Those rights and freedoms were to be subject to the respect for the rights and freedoms of others. Basic rights that were not accorded to our people were accorded to our people at independence, and they were the right to life itself, liberty, security, protection of the law, the right to take part in political activities, freedom from inhuman treatment, freedom of conscience, thought and religion, freedom of information, freedom of assembly and association, freedom of movement, freedom of employment, protection of the privacy of houses and other properties, protection from unjust deprivation of property. Those and other forms of liberation were what Somare, the founding father, wanted and achieved. Today, you and I can enter into any hotel or beer bar or any tavern where there is no longer any more discrimination. Nobody can stop you and I from entering those places. Who do we thank? One of our founding fathers is right here, sleeping, that we thank him and the others, our founding fathers, for giving us these freedoms, so that for enshrining them in our Constitution, because under our Constitution, those freedoms can be enforced. If we didn't have them in the Constitution, those freedoms would not be enforced. Our forefathers, when I read the debates of the House of Assembly and the Constituent Assembly debates, I saw the reason now why they included all these rights in the Constitution, because they had the foresight that if we did not include them in the Constitution, governments and other more authoritative people would tread on the toes and the rights and freedoms of those less fortunate people. They were tired of being suppressed and oppressed in our own land. This is our founding fathers. They were tired of being suppressed in our own land. Today, this entire world is not yet free from such dominations and oppressions. And you don't have to look far to see that. Today we can understand where our founding fathers were coming from. And today we can understand their desire to have a free and democratic society. Our leaders like Somare at the helm charted a course for us, and here we are 45 years into our journey. We are in control of our own destiny. Thanks again to Sir Michael Somare and our founding fathers. Sink or swim, at least we are in control. Thank you, Sir Michael, for this. We will never forget you for this. At independence, amid skepticism and doubt, whether Papua New Guinea would survive and move forward into a thriving democracy, that was always the talk of the world. That would this young nation, without any experience, would they survive? Those were the questions. Somare ensured that his dreams for a free democratic PNG was achieved. A free democratic people, but subject to the rule of law. Sir Michael was then able to recruit people like the late Anthony Siaguru, Rabi Namaliu, late Sekere Morauta, Charles Lepani, now famously known as the PNG Gang of Four. This man and others had just graduated from the university in their late 1968, from the University of Papua New Guinea, where they were raw interns employed by the government. And also by then, Joseph Awai, the first Papua New Guinean lawyer, had just graduated from Australia and was also back here in Papua New Guinea. So Burikidu followed soon after from him, and Bernard Narakobi also followed soon after from there. Those three all graduated early from universities in Australia. So Joseph Awai and Burikidu from Queensland, while